Yes. Keep it that way.
All right, we're good.
Are we live? We are live. Welcome everybody to the Matt Hilton Show. If you're tuning in today, you're probably seeing us on YouTube or the Matt Hilton Show page on Facebook. So welcome. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do so and like our Facebook page and share and comment and do all the things. Invite other people to subscribe as well. So if you have tuned into any of our shows, you know that this show is based upon fascinating people with inspiring stories. And today's guest is just that. So Richard, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Matt.
Yeah, for sure. So tell us a little bit about your, I guess, upbringing. So we ask our guests to typically bring an item that
totally
brings them joy. So it's all good.
Totally.
Tell us about that.
Forgot. The item?
Yeah, about the item and how that reminds you of your upbringing.
So the item that I wanted to bring was something that my dad got from his mom, and it's a plaque about this big. It's a metal plaque.
Okay.
His grandfather was a motorcycle cop. Okay, and he rescued a guy in the 20s or late teens out of a river in Pennsylvania, and it was interesting because I look at this plaque and it's just this big steel plate about this thick, and it's written with gold writing with like a permanent marker, and it says the award for saving the guy or whatever, and it has a little drawing of a guy. And you know, Matt, it's a reminder kind of like where I came from. You know, that I have a blue collar background. You know, my dad was a truck driver. My mom was, you know, she worked a varying degree of jobs as a waitress and, you know, in the school as an assistant, you know, where we went to school. And that plaque is a reminder that no matter where you are, like you can kind of have impact. You can still impact others. And something like that plaque it's affected me in a lot of ways. It sort of keeps me grounded in a reminder of, you know, every day you can impact someone else's life, and it could be saving them from drowning in a river, or it could be in what I do for a living, which is crisis communications.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, yeah, that's just one of the things. And ironically, sometimes when your parents pass away, you what you think is valuable, and they have all these things and all this stuff. It's like, what do you do with it, right? But it's like I only kept a couple things of my dad's, and that was one of them.
That was one of them. Yeah. And you mentioned those things that, you know, we can impact others' lives. It can be saving somebody's life. It can be, you know, the crisis management that we'll talk about here in a minute. It can also be just sharing your story, which people have done on this show, to, you know, help people along, like giving encouraging words to a young African-American girl who is growing up in South Dallas. How does she make it to the theater, right? Right. So just things like that have been brought out during this show too. So
I love the fact that you're doing that. In fact, you know, even before we were recording here, I have a podcast, of course, and we both got into it for the same reasons. And we're curious, and we want to use other people's stories to help others. There's a term that I use, Matt. It's called effective altruism. Now, some people see that as a controversial term, as a little bit, but I sort of define effective altruism as a way of assuring you have impact along the way. Don't wait till you're a millionaire. Don't wait till, you know, you make it, right? How can you impact and have impact along the way? And for you, for instance, being in real estate, you know, doing this show, you said it was a passion project, you know, but by telling other people's stories, I think it has a profound impact on how other people view their lives, and the things that they will do day to day to help other people, and maybe they'll be inspired to help other people, and you may not ever know about the impact that they'll make.
Yeah, and that's part of this, right? It's like, you know, I don't seek out anything from this. People ask me all the time, like, what type of real estate business have you gotten from the show? And I'm like, none that I can connect directly, right? But nor can I connect directly a life that may have been saved or
Sure.
somebody's life that may have been turned around.
Right.
I do know of one, and she's working with me today.
Yeah. She's amazing.
Yeah, so she's someone who she tells me I saved her life, and I will believe that and go with that. It's just hard to imagine that, right? That
Right.
Actions and words and just being who you are can actually help somebody else. So
It's the butterfly effect.
yeah.
You know, I'm a believer, and I live by the butterfly effect. And
what is that
seen
for
it.
people who don't know?
So the butterfly effect is essentially if you take a small action or do or smile at somebody or do anything. And the most famous one is if a butterfly flaps its wings in South America, will it cause a tornado in Texas? The answer is unequivocally yes. You know, it will, right? It can cause a tornado in Texas. In other words, by you smiling or by you having an impact on someone else's life, even in the most minuscule way, what you think would be insignificant could go on to have a profound impact on their life.
Yeah.
And, you know, we come across people that could be having a bad day. You know, we don't know what just happened. We don't know where they're at in their life, right? Mm-hmm. And I think if we all took the time to be kind, to ask questions, and to ask how are you doing with authenticity, I think we would probably have better communities. I think we'd have closer knit communities.
Yeah.
But the other side of that is, I think you have to be able to answer those questions of how are you doing honestly.
Mm-hmm. Not just, I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. But if it's not, I think it's up to each and every one of us to say it's not okay.
So I do some speaking on this topic, so I'm curious as to what your take on this is. So what is the reason you feel that people don't open up rather than just say, hey, I'm doing great, everything's fine?
You know, I don't think I think it's unique to America, first of all, and our society and our culture and just how we live our lives. And if you think about like Eastern countries like Asia or Thailand or Singapore, where I was recently, they live in a collective environment, a collective culture, right? They think about the collective of the whole first versus the individual. And so I could make a really good argument with anyone really that we live in an individualistic society that really focuses on oneself. And so the terms, oh, I'm busy, everything's fine, rolls off our tongue like just like the sun comes up and the day starts, right? When in reality, I think if we really knew how each other were doing, we could probably have deeper, more fulfilled relationships and then start thinking about the whole, like the whole community or the whole county or the whole state. But I think it has to come from the individual first. And I think that involves being honest and communicating with yourself.
Yeah, it does. It does. One of the things that a practice that I have fallen out of, but I try to do every now and then, is ask somebody instead of how are you doing, like, tell me something good.
Yeah.
Like, switch it to where, because I want to hear more about, again, talking about being curious, right?
Right.
I want to hear something that's going on good in your life.
Sure.
Instead of focusing on maybe what has been going on bad or just asking that question that everybody asks you.
Well, and I think I was coaching my kids, he plays high school baseball, right? And he's doing the off-season games or scrimmage games is what kind of it is during the fall, right? And I was talking to this one kid, he kind of had a bad attitude when I went to go ask him for something, or something. And it was the next game he opened up to me, and I think it's because I showed him that I kind of care about his well-being, about how he played and all that other stuff, before. And he came to me, he said, hey, I'm sorry, my foster parents are here. So it turns out in a 5-minute conversation that I had with him, his mom was a drug addict. He's been in and out of foster care for the last couple years. He's 15 years old. Going to be 16. He doesn't know who his dad is. He came from Arizona, and all of this sort of like, he sort of just opened up to me. And I think, Matt, it's because if you allow that safe place for someone to talk to you, you can really pull out information from them to where you know them now.
Yeah.
And that allows you to care and allows you to talk to them as a human being and not just as a baseball player or a coworker or a whatever, right? And this kid, I hope he's going to be fine, but you don't know, right? And I hope along the way he has a good male figure in his life to help correct him on the attitude part. But I think he's going to need some help. And I know that he wasn't going to go see a therapist because I asked him about it. And he said, no, I don't feel like I need one. I'll work it through it myself.
Yeah.
But at 15, would he, he may know later or figure that out later that he can't help himself.
It's hard in and of itself to get a 15-year-old to open up. So
it is.
Yeah.
But if there's something really hurting people and you show you care,
that's right.
They will open up.
They will. Mm-hmm. So speaking of, you mentioned about having kids and things become valuable and all that. I saw a little baby.
Yep.
Is this a new addition to like a child or is it a grandchild?
Grandchild.
Okay.
Grandchild.
Fantastic.
Yep. Yeah. So my daughter, so I'm actually in the.
You don't look old enough to be a grandfather.
I know.
That's why
what
I'm asking.
everybody says. So I go by Rah Rah.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, like, I'm in the middle of writing. I'm in the final stages of writing a book, and the book is called "Don't Assume There's Toilet Paper," and it's about making assumptions about our life, and it's about why do we think that our life today is going to be the exact same as it was yesterday? Like, we just go about our lives as an autopilot, and part of it is technology, our society, our comfort, just how we live our lives, right? And most of the world does this, and I do it too. But and the whole analogy, don't assume there's toilet, I'm getting to the granddaughter thing.
I hear you.
And so the whole analogy, don't assume there's toilet paper, because we walk into a bathroom and we just assume that there's toilet paper in every bathroom because of the last 1,500 times we were there. But what we don't realize is each time you enter a bathroom, it's an independent event that has nothing to do with the previous time, right?
And I think I read something in a summary that there is no toilet paper fairy.
No.
Is that right?
Yeah, there's no toilet paper fairy following you around.
Somebody has to go in there and physically put it in.
Right, and you could blame your wife, you could blame your spouse, you could blame your husband, you could blame your brother, sister, whoever you live with, right? But in reality, Matt, it was your fault for not paying attention. So, my daughter goes away to college, and to Alabama, and she was doing well, and we get a call one day that she was pregnant. I mean, so you want to talk about, her getting off payroll, as we say, and moving her off payroll to now she comes back with a baby and a dog. And so I think after the initial shock of it all, the next thing that you have to do is accept it. But when you accept it, you free yourself from the burden of carrying that with you, and you allow yourself to feel. Because think about it, like, I have Hadley in our life now, and Ryder, who is my daughter's dog, in our life now. I wouldn't trade that in for the world. Like, think about that.
Yeah.
And at first, you're like, wow, this is so unbelievable. And the first thing we tend to do is, I can't believe this happened. Well, why? There's 8 billion people here somehow. Like, you know what I mean? Why is it a surprise? Women get pregnant. You know what I mean?
But it wasn't how you had it pictured.
No.
Of how everything was going to play out.
No.
Because to your book, right? We thought everything was going to play out the way we
she was going to go to school.
Yeah.
She was going to be a nurse. She was going to do all of these things that we wanted her to do, right? But sometimes it's not up to us.
Right.
And I think if you release that, you allow yourself to feel the amazing feeling that you get when you have a new grandbaby coming home or whatever that happens. And I think if we just all chose to look at life a little bit different and say, okay, if I'm going to truly live and live full, I want to experience every aspect of life. I want to feel what it's like to be depressed. I want to feel like what it's like to celebrate. I want to feel what it's like to be happy and sad and worried, and so I want to experience every part of life. And now this is one experience that I get to feel, another experience.
And I think when you do ask those questions, it's part of the shared experience that we have as humans.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you can learn from somebody else who has gone through something that you may not be going through now, but you may
will
experience that in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
If you're lucky.
Yeah.
And so, with that said though, you go to this, you move aside from that feeling of like, what did I do wrong, to thankfulness and gratitude, right? Because I'm so thankful now. And then, my wife and I were in a position where we're okay. I mean, we're fine. We do well, and so we can do that. But if we weren't in a situation where we were doing well, it would be a different experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the truth is we don't know what tomorrow brings.
Yeah. Earlier you mentioned that you grew up in a blue collar type of a household.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever know when you were young that you grew up in a blue collar household?
No. Mm-mm.
So tell me about that. I mean, what was it like?
So I don't think you truly understand where you're at in life until you go outside of your bubble. The funny thing is, I do these things now, we go on a ski trip every year or, whatever. But in the world that I grew up in, I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't know it was possible to write a book. Everything seems so distant. But if you don't know what you're missing out on, how can you miss it?
Yeah.
Right? And so I knew that my dad was gone for 2 or 3 weeks, out of the month, that my mom worked a varying degree of jobs. I knew that, we had enough money to live on, but I didn't really know what wealth was. I didn't, you don't compute what that really means.
Yeah.
Right? And I still don't, and nor do I really care.
Yeah.
And so I had a good childhood. I had a half sister who actually lived in New York, and 2 brothers. I have a twin. And my older brother passed away 2 years ago in May 10th of a heart condition. So he had a heart condition his whole life. He was born with it. And when he passed away, Matt, it was like part of my childhood sort of was gone, right? And so as you're asking this question, I'm reverting back to what it was like growing up with 2 brothers, knowing that my dad and my brother are now gone. So
Right.
2/5 of my family are now not here. I was an average student. I was in dropout prevention, which is here, I think in Texas, they call it at risk. And school was a struggle for me. My brothers did well, but I knew that there was something different. I knew that I didn't want to be normal like that. And I know that sounds funny, but even back then, I knew that something was different. I wanted to explore, and I'm dyslexic, so I had a hard time with books, reading line to line. And I didn't know how I could learn. I didn't know what that meant. Learn how you learn, right? Because my parents didn't go to college. And so there was nothing for them to pass on to us other than you got to work hard, you got to work hourly, and you don't know any different until I was 18 and I moved to Atlanta, and I'm like, oh, this is not exactly what I thought it was.
Yeah.
It
And I
totally
think
different
that is so true because, I grew up in a similar type of family. My dad was a mechanic. My mom kept kids at home. And and I'm the oldest of 4. So growing up in I think it was 1,300 square foot house.
Yeah, that's what
3 bedroom,
that's
1
what
and a
ours
half
was.
bath.
Yep.
It was just a small little house in Garland. And it was, I didn't know any different.
No, you don't know.
I mean, we got up, we did our things every morning, we had this routine going, I'd play outside, kids, if you're watching, go outside, enjoy the
Play.
weather. It's beautiful right now. Get off the phones, get off the computers.
Yep.
But all that being said, I didn't know any different.
No.
Right? Until I went off to college.
Yep.
Neither one of my parents went to college, but I wanted to be different. I wanted to go
Yeah.
do more.
Right.
And so I went off to college, and yeah, that's when my eyes were opened. My horizon was broadened, right, as far as what all could potentially be out there. I still didn't know a lot,
Right.
but it was opening up.
I think you get, as you start traveling, you start doing more stuff. In my 20s, I got jaded to a little bit, right? I took it for granted. A buddy of mine won the Stanley Cup, and I didn't really go to hockey games. I didn't really know what that meant. And so you just sort of like bypass as, oh, this is part of my life. Like, this is just my life, right? And when I left to go to Atlanta, I started modeling and doing some acting. And that was a weird experience because I didn't fit in that world. Like, it wasn't naturally me. Like, so I would like sort of pretend, and try to be something I'm not. And that really stripped me of me being genuine with other people. Like, the things that I thought would matter didn't actually matter, and but I also took it for granted the way I was able to travel and go do stuff, and I did that for 4 years, but I wouldn't do it again, and like, I don't want my kids to do that. I don't want them to experience that stuff. It was cool.
So what would you have done differently?
Gone to school.
Okay.
Yeah, I would have gone to school to get a degree because I realize now that it didn't hold me back. Not having a degree certainly would hold me back from being in a corporate world today, right? Mm-hmm. I always tell everybody I'm not even hireable. I'm way too expensive. I don't work hard enough, and I don't have a degree. Mm-hmm. And the irony there is I'm in a field in which doesn't necessarily require a degree, but if I did had to fall on my degree, I don't have one. So, but then I missed out on that college experience. But then I could go back and I could say, wow, there's a lot of people, millions of people that will never get to experience what it was like being in New York, going to the MTV Music Award after parties, being represented by, IMG, which is one of the largest agencies in the world. Mm-hmm. That was a really cool experience. Mm-hmm. But it also stripped me from who I was authentically and genuine, just me being me.
Yeah, and decisions like that, I don't know the background of all the decisions that went into that of not going to school, but those decisions, right, take you along a path, whereas
Sure.
If you would have made another decision, you would be somewhere else.
I love the fact that you brought up a path, because what we fail to realize, Matt, is each path is connected to the previous path. Mm-hmm. So you had to have there was a fork in the road at some point, and you made a decision. I left school after 3 or 4 months. I couldn't do college. I just couldn't do it. I was dyslexic. I wasn't interested enough, and I didn't have a direction. I didn't have a focus. I didn't even know what I wanted to be. I knew that I wanted to be sitting in boardrooms or come up with strategies for businesses or whatever, but I didn't have a goal in mind. So I couldn't. How do you get on a path if you don't have a goal? How do you make decisions, right? Yeah. And now the way that I look at goals, it's a little bit different, because now my goal wouldn't be to complete school. If I was, go to school, kids, trust me, you have to go to school. It's a non-negotiable at this point. But here's the thing though, your goal shouldn't be to graduate with a master's. Your goal should be get in the classes that will take you to a position to where you could graduate with a master's. If you want to be the president of the United States, I got a lot of questions. Like, do you have a lot of money? Are you doing community work now? Are you doing social stuff now? What are you doing to get on the path to become the president of the United States?
Right.
That should be your goal. Because guess what? There hasn't been that many presidents. In fact, there's been about the exact same amount of vice presidents. You know what I mean? And so most people, we don't think about, I say most people, but we don't think about what it is to make a goal. And so once I started figuring that out, Matt, my life started changing a lot. And it took me, ironically, doing some modeling, doing some acting, and saying, where do I want to go? Well, I want to travel one day. Okay, well, what does that mean?
Right.
Well, you can't go work for anybody because that 2 weeks a year, it ain't going to happen. You ain't traveling. So you're going to figure out and do something on your own.
All right, so we could go down this path.
I know.
So much more. There's so much more I want to talk to you about too. I didn't realize, as I mentioned to you before the show, that you had already been to the studios here.
Oh, yeah.
And I think you were just here promoting The Hill or doing something with. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about that.
So The Hill is based on the real life true story of Ricky Hill, who was a Major League Baseball player. He was disabled growing up.
Okay.
I met Ricky Hill through a company. So real quick, so everyone sort of knows, I come into organizations sometime as a fractional chief marketing officer, CMO, or a fractional sort of VP of communications.
Okay.
And so right now there's a company that I'm working with called Curcumin Pro, and Ricky Hill is associated with that company, who was referred by another friend, a mutual friend. And I got connected with Ricky, and then come to find out he's doing that movie. And so with the writers and actors on strike, I'll help however I can, because it's an incredible story of a man that was disabled, Ricky Hill, who made it through that to become a baseball player, a professional baseball player. And
Wow.
Go see the movie. It's an amazing, inspiring story, and I think there's something in there for everybody.
Okay. And when does it due out?
It's out now.
It's out now.
It came out August 25th.
Okay.
So it's in theaters right now. I think they're actually going to be moving it to DVD or it's where you can download it now.
Yeah.
So yeah,
it'll be on all the streaming services.
it'll be on all the streams. So, yeah, it's an incredible story. The lead actor is Dennis Quaid, who's a phenomenal person, good human being, and he did a phenomenal job playing Ricky Hill's father, who was a pastor.
Okay.
Yeah, go see the movie.
Go see the movie.
Yeah.
Talking about working with companies as CMO and things that. So you are in crisis management, right?
Irony.
Especially within media. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So how did you even get into that for starters?
Oh gosh, so I've always been interested in media and in PR, right? So marketing, media, PR, sort of that thing. I like sales, but it doesn't interest me. It doesn't drive me, right? I truly like the benefits of seeing a whole package coming together. And so about 15 years ago, I was working with a law firm, and they had some crises with some of their clients. So a lot of times, if a crisis person or if an attorney steps in and makes a statement on behalf of the client, it can sort of look bad to the public. So it looks like they got something to defend, if you will, right? Oh, so they're just making these statements through the clients or through the attorneys, right? And so the law firm brought me in to help them make statements on behalf of themselves, on behalf of the organization, or come out and be a spokesperson for the organization, either in written or verbal. And it just sort of snowballed after that, if you will. One client would hire me, and then the next one, and then I started working with higher profile folks, athletes, executives, larger companies, sports teams, and it just sort of took off from there. it's kind of been an interesting path, but again, I would have never been on that path if I didn't know about media and know about marketing. And then when you do it independently, you have the ability to see what works for other organizations. Mm-hmm. And so you can apply logic from one industry to another. And most people that are in, say, a marketing position are usually stuck within an industry. So they don't really get the benefit of looking at another industry to see how it functions or what works and what doesn't work. And to me, I was able to transfer that knowledge from one place to another. And it just so happened that crises doesn't really matter what industry you're in. You can still apply the same logic and sort of protocol to get through it. And with that said, though, Matt, crisis, anyone can wordsmith through a crisis or positive PR, but my focus is not necessarily on the crisis itself. It's how do you catapult a business or a company or organization, a nonprofit, a church, using the crisis. How do you catapult them forward? How do you turn it around to where now you can use that crisis to have impact? That's my focus. It's not necessarily the crisis itself. How do you change the culture to where the organization can have impact and catapult themselves forward? That to me is a missing link with a lot of the crisis because everyone's focused on the crisis.
Right. Not the path that the crisis could take them on in a positive way. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So do you typically engage with corporations and groups, or do you also work with individuals?
Both.
Okay.
So both. I worked with an MVP of the World Series. I've worked with a drummer. I've worked with nonprofits. Most people know that I've worked with the Dallas Mavericks and churches and ministries. I'm working with someone right now in the nonprofit space. So it doesn't matter.
So I have a question that Kathy asked me to ask. All right?
We love Kathy.
And I don't know if she asked you this before the show or not. However, I'm going to ask it on air here. So if something is said or done to an individual in public, right, and they're a public figure, right, to begin with.
Sure.
And somebody comes at them with a comment or an allegation or something, in your opinion, is it case by case, or should they respond immediately? Should they keep quiet? Like, what does that look like?
So that is a loaded question because so there's two things. One of them, it is case by case, right? But I always go back to a couple things. Even as an individual, if you made the mistake, right? Can you isolate the mistake? Can you set it aside from the norm? And so this is how I've been for 10 years, and then this was my one mistake, is in an isolated incident. So whether it's an individual or organization, you have to sort of think through that. The next thing that I tell people, or I tell organizations or individuals is, you have to at some point acknowledge that it happened or didn't happen. You have to start controlling your own narrative. And again, if it happened, how can you as an individual look to the other side, forget where your current state is, because you have to get through it. You have to get past it, because otherwise, Matt, I can tell you right now, if you don't get past it, it drags on, and it's going to continue to drag you back. So think about a crisis as a big parachute. So if you want to go forward and you have this parachute dragging behind me, you can run, but at some point you're going to get exhausted, right?
And when you say go past it,
go past the crisis.
Okay.
Meaning, what 3 or 4 things can I do right now to use it to get myself past it and to move forward? That could come into a form of acknowledgement. It could come in the form of embracing it. Sometimes we do have to embrace what we did in the past. Sometimes we have to gather our army of people to help us get there. right? And I think most of us will focus on the problem. So you're going to do one of two things in a crisis. You're going to either freeze and do nothing, or you're going to panic and be scattered everywhere without a clear direction.
Right.
And so a lot of times talking to an individual where that something has happened, they actually will talk themselves into the answer. And so allowing them, so one of the things, in fact, I was talking to Kathy about this is, you keep asking the questions like, I need to know a little bit more. I need to know a little bit more. I need to know a little bit more, right? And then, usually they will start coming to the conclusion on what they need to do next. So sometimes I'm just a sounding board, or I just give them options.
Right.
But I remember.
Tell us a good story. Come on.
We can't really tell I wish I could, because I really do have some good ones. But here's the funny thing, though. There is one of them that one of the guys says, they can't sue us out of business, but the PR portion of it could slowly suffocate us out of business. So pick one. So sometimes admitting the fault and taking the hit legally sometimes may be your best route forward, right? For an individual, it gets a little bit more tricky because the families are involved. Sometimes your livelihood is involved,
right.
Is involved, right? And so what I tell even people that are going through this as just an individual and affects every aspect of their life, if you did something wrong, you have to own it. Crises are expensive, but so is the apology. You have to be willing to pay.
What if you didn't do anything wrong? What if it's just somebody's opinion, or they're just out to get you?
Again, that's a loaded question, because it really is, because at the end of the day, it's up to you as an individual to create your own narrative. And like you doing this show, for instance, and creating content and doing all the positive things that you've been doing, you may do 12 shows that could wipe out one crisis, right? So it's not, oh, but I did all of these good things. Well, it's still not enough for the one thing that you're dealing with.
Right.
Right? And if someone is accusing you or, doing that, the worst thing you could do, first of all, is attack back. That's the very worst thing that you could do. And the next thing is, that's like saying somebody accusing you of being an addict. When you're not an addict, right? I think at the end of the day, Matt, if you go back to just being you, being authentic, and getting the people that support you the most on your side to speak on your behalf with you, and creating that, I call it that mini board of advisors, you can attack back without attacking them.
Well, you can suffocate them instead of you suffocating, right?
That's right. Yeah. But that involves gathering up the people that believe in you, that know you, whether it's your family, your friends, your community, your clients. You have to have those people speak on your behalf. Whether it's with a big organization, crises are scalable, right? It's a scalable. It can be scalable, even if you're a large organization. If a company or if an individual is accusing this large corporation of X, well, the first thing that I do is, okay, can you get a trusted board of advisors that are influential in the industry or community in which you serve and do business in to speak on your behalf? Because that right there alone will, like you say, suffocate out some of that other noise.
Yeah.
Yeah, easier said than done.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, this time has gone by so fast. As we wrap up, I'm going to check Facebook Live real quick and see if anybody has sent in any questions. If you haven't sent any questions, please do so, and we can try to. Nope, no questions yet. All right, so I typically ask questions of people at the end of each of the shows, and so I'm going to ask you those.
Sure.
I love helping people realize dreams. So many times people quit dreaming, and as kids we dream a lot, and then something happens, or outside influences, whether it be parents telling you that'll never happen, or whatever that may look like, right? They just stop dreaming. So I'd like for you to imagine and dream for just a minute.
Okay.
And if you could meet one living person, who would that be?
One living person?
Living person.
Gosh, probably Nolan Ryan.
Okay. All right. If you could visit one place in the world, where would you go?
Oh gosh, man, I've already been there. Thailand. I love Thailand. I love the culture. I love Thailand.
Did you go there for business or was it pleasure?
Pleasure.
Okay.
I love Thailand. But if oh man, that's a tough
loaded
question because I've traveled so much,
Yeah.
and I've been so fortunate in my adult life to be able to do that and to show my kids. And so I don't know. That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about that. The only state I haven't been to is Alaska, so probably Alaska.
Okay. All right. And if you could experience one thing, like jumping out of a perfectly good airplane or going to a Cowboys game on Thanksgiving Day, what experience would you want to have that you haven't had so far?
What experience? Oh man, that's another great question. I would like to see the edge of the earth.
The edge of the earth.
Yeah, like going to outer space and seeing the curvature of the earth, I think would be an amazing thing to witness.
No one said that yet in the past 18 months. Nobody has said that. So that's pretty cool.
Well, I think being able to realize how small we are and how insignificant we are to the size of the planet would be a pretty profound experience. But I think it would also bring me back to earth, if you will, with a different perspective, because even though the world is this big and as big as I just witnessed, if that were to happen, everything that I value is in it.
Okay. As we thank you for those responses, and hopefully that will get you to thinking a little bit more about maybe a place that you haven't visited that besides Alaska.
Gosh, I really need to think about that.
But yeah, so thank you for being here. And as we conclude, is there anything that you wish I would have asked you that I didn't?
Wow. You know, I think our just it's more of a comment, to be honest with you. I think our perspective of time is skewed a little bit, Matt. I think we need to focus more on the present and the now, because I think we are losing perspective of our place in time, right? Which is always in the now. And I think we live so much in the past and so much that we're in the future where we're trying to go, that we're completely losing focus of the now. And a friend of mine, Matt, has stage 4 cancer. He's in his last few months. His name is Matt. And when we were talking one day, it really hit me that maybe the way that I think about life is good. Like, you said being a kid, right? Mm-hmm. And I've never lost that wanderlust for life. I want to experience all facets of life. I always want to just go and do stuff and never be tied down like that. And in a way, I've started to appreciate the now versus talking about my past or trying to get to a future. And so, just being appreciative of the now and refocusing your time, because all you will ever have is now. That's it.
Wow. Great way to end the show. Thank you so much. Richard W. Harmer is here, and he has a book that's coming out. Tell us the name of it again.
Don't assume there's toilet paper.
Don't assume there's toilet paper. And then the part that I read, I think was just a foreword or a summary. I want to read the book. So get that book. Any projection when it's going to come out?
So I'm in the midst of moving right now, and so that got delayed. Again, it's all about assumptions in life. Like things happen, I had to move. So I'm looking at late Q4.
Okay.
This year. So by December. So it got pushed up about a month.
Okay, so it could be a good Christmas present.
Exactly.
There we go. All right.
Exactly.
Richard Harmer was with us today. Thank you again, sir.
No, thank you.
And if you are tuning in, please like, subscribe, do all the things, share, comment, help us promote this show, get Richard's message out, and stay tuned next week as we have another fascinating person with an inspiring story. And let's just go out and do good, right? And be kind to people, ask them questions, and following up, just ending the show here, today's show is brought to you by Hilton Realty Advisors. We specialize in residential real estate and helping people through those life transitions. And if there's anything we can ever do for you, please let us know. Our number is 214-632-1020, and we're going to put up a graphic here at the end of the show as well. So thank you all for tuning in, and see you later.
With almost 20 years of real estate experience in the North Texas area, the professional realtors at Hilton Realty Advisors have helped over 500 clients with their housing needs. Hilton Realty Advisors covers all areas of real estate: buying, selling, building, investing, and renting. We deliver the keys to homeownership to all through integrity, love, and joy. Call us today for all